Hey everyone. I went and spoke at a conference. Wasn't exactly what I expected, but look, that is a-okay. We are here, and I apologize for my tardiness. We are here to do a book review. Okay, so sit down and let's talk about it. Let's first get into an overview. I think that it is a tragedy at how the media covered this. And for the last week and a half, I have been on a a Twitter discussion. I have been feeling like an in-person discussion with folks. I have been beefing in group chats for a solid week and a half. And I am really saddened that the media selects a half a statement and makes that into a headline and posts it everywhere. And then to pretty much tear down this book. I don't think, and tear down Jada Pinkett. I know that Will Smith had it bad with the slap. And I also did a book review on that too, on Will Smith. So I hope that you find that. And that was also, I thought, was a bridge too far. Sorry, my kids just came home. But I think this book was, I just feel that the attack on this is just ridiculous. And partially I feel that it has to do with the fact she's a woman. So um one of the aspects of this book, first of all, it's a beautifully written book. I have never read a memoir before, and I've read quite a few. And I will say that first off, the book is aesthetically pleasing. Like, okay, so you just look at the outside, okay, fine. But at the end, and this goes with how I feel about it. At the end of every chapter, she has a reflection. And she wants you to get through what your biggest take out that she has from this chapter, maybe what she's learned from reflecting on these experiences. And then she's dividing this up into you being able to personally reflect with the material. I've never read a book like this before in a memoir format. And I think that is such a great aspect of the book. And I mean, chapter one took me, I mean, it's just a beautiful book. Like, I mean, it's really such a great book. Like, and like, so it's aesthetically pleasing, first of all. Um, she doesn't have a section of a bunch of pictures in the middle. Will Smith does. His book was. And one of the things I will take away from too about Will, the thing that I think is probably it's important for me to focus on is which I think is an important comment, and this is part of her story, is when you it's amazing how a woman can be really successful and have an identity of herself, right? And then yet she's still mentioned with her husband, right? And even um and yeah. So like even if you see we can talk about like a Beyonce and Jay-Z, right? There is a generation of younger people who may not be as familiar with Jay-Z. I mean, I say this as a person who uses Jay-Z in my class, and they're not necessarily as connected to Jay-Z because his music has changed and evolved with his age. So he may not be, and he doesn't rap, he doesn't bring out albums as consistently. And he's he's not attempting to make music to mix completely with the current generation. Not saying that he's not involved in music, but it's just not the same like as a P. Diddy, right? So, but him and Beyonce do a lot of work together. And part of it is there was a moment that Jay-Z was a much bigger draw than a Beyonce. And I've been to Jay-Z Beyonce concerts back in the day. You did have more people who will go to a Jay-Z concert than a Beyonce concert. And then they came together, and it's like, this is the first concert that she has been on in which he has not stepped one toe on the stage. Whew, I mean, in 20 years. And it's her most successful concert. And it's not to say that he didn't shape that, but it's not a lot of men who's willing to pay to take a back step to a woman's career like a Jay-Z has been able to, and honestly, post Lemonade. And it could be, you have to be confident in yourself as a man to be good with this. I think that so I was concerned about even having this conversation because this is about Jada. And it's unfortunate in one way because this is part of her issue is that being in Will Smith's world, it meant that Jada didn't get to be credited as being someone who holds her own. And that is and even in part of my group chat arguments, it was, and even on Twitter, it became a, well, she's not as big and she's not as this as Will Smith. And I was like, but it's not to say that she didn't have a career. And then it was completely downplaying her career. You mean a different world? You mean, fill in the blank. And it's like, I'm sorry. She also did commercial films. Like she did The Matrix. She's been an executive producer on a number of big films. I didn't even know that she was an executive producer on Queen Latifah's show and talk show. I mean, she has a resume, and part of me, I went back and forth in regards to like, don't downplay her resume just because you want to just because you struggle with her telling her story just to, and you want to now attack her based on her not having as extensive resume, still knowing that she's made a career, and she's made it a commercial career for herself. And then some people, before Will Smith, and then she's also continued to make one outside of Will Smith's orbit. And let's not say that being a mother doesn't play a role into that. She's taking care of the kids. She was much more of an active person in regards to that. Whereas Will Smith being a dude gets the bounce. Like, there's being a female, there's being a mother, and combined with doing this in the misogynistic framework of Hollywood. Like, I mean, it is so frustrating. Like, watching it has been so frustrating, and I've been trying to figure out, like, why am I going so hard? And I think partly is because, why is it that, men really, I think it's partly two reasons. It's a trigger for a lot of women that men really just don't want to hear women speak and tell their story. Like, nobody is going around saying, I'm hearing the Jada's a liar. Okay, if Jada's a liar, is Will a liar too? Then I hear, well, she's not protecting Will. She's throwing Will under the bus. Did you read the entire statement? Like, how is this not? And then when I refute it back by showing, hey, Will Smith is way harder on himself. Like, his book is so hard on himself. Like, he is really hard on himself about what he's done, and how what he's done to his family, how his incredible drive to be number one and the best and this empire, and how that hurt his relationships with his wife and his children, and then how he's now trying to discover, like, happiness and deal with trauma and deal with understanding himself and finding himself. Like, he's dealing with that, and he's really hard on, I sacrificed my family, their emotional space, in order to become this larger than life character. This larger than life facade of a person that is palatable for the masses. And I also sacrificed myself in that space. He's really hard on himself. And Jada, in her book, is not hard on him at all. Like, she's still protecting him in many ways, and she's holding him so close to herself. Like, this is a part of this is so hers. Like, she's explains a little bit about their relationship, not in the same way as people are saying that she threw him under the bus. She's really protecting him. And I'm going to say, like, in the last chapter, when she said, Yeah, I'm probably gonna cry in this thing. Um, when she said, you are a king of my heart." Like, this is happened, I think, like within the last year or so. And she goes, Will's eyes lit up as if he were allowing his heart to blossom unexpectedly. Then he told me that I was a queen of his heart. Like, they love each other. And you see that in his book, and you really see that in her book. But this is the second trigger, is I'm triggered by men's response. And the second trigger I have is uh, is how the media is covering it. I think that Karen Hunter, like, she is a mentor in my head. I am thoroughly disgusted that, I'm sorry, my son has made the decision to be so loud, and it's very distracting. Anyway, okay, so my son, Karen Hunter, like, we're friends on we're friends in narrative. Anyway, so she's a mentor in my head. Anyway, what it's, and maybe it's because my background is journalism, but I struggle with the concept of people who call themselves journalists, who don't listen to full newspaper, who do not listen to full speeches or interviews, who can't read behind a headline, who doesn't read the book, who doesn't do basic research. I'm not even asking for in-depth research. I'm just saying basic research. And make commentary. And I find that to be offensive. Like, before I speak on something, like, one of the bare basics of journalism school, I mean, journalism, like 101. I'm sorry, y'all. People are just texting me, right? Okay. Before I even do, like, journalism 101 is research skills. And where you cannot speak on a story, even if it's an opinion piece, because media matters in the sense that you have to be as authentic and truthful in your retort and your analysis, even if you're thinking that you're giving an opinion. So I'm sorry. It angers me to my fullest that people feel, I am so sorry, that they can like, it angers me to my core. It angers me that people feel that they can just take shortcuts. And that's part of the problem with the media now. So you have Jada Pinkett Smith that is doing these interviews, saying what it is, and you have the book. People are reading a half a sentence. Like, for example, the slap, right? And let me go. Hold on, let me get to it. There was a slap, right? And she made a comment that people only hear. This is the only thing people hear, that people have been doing this, is okay. They only hear this. Yeah, hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Okay, this is what has been quoted. It was about the joke. It was disheartening, and I didn't take personal offense. That is the thing that they quote, right? If you keep reading, she says, what's more? People of color are damn near never defended. For that reason, even amid the chorus of voices ready to blame Jada for the slap, I recognize that there were women from every walk of life who were secretly screaming, fuck right about time. A slight whisper of that sentiment spoke to me too and made me feel, thank you, Will, for defending me. Right. But it's easy to use the headline to say that Jada shaves Will. But if you finished the thought, she also goes on to say, Will, it seems, was suffering from the trap of his own handmade gilded cage. Turns out he is human, as we all are, including Chris. She is not siding with Chris at all. And she's not like, people stop and say, what the fuck is she doing? What is he doing? That's where they stop. And they don't listen to. She goes on to say, it was agonizing and shocking to watch a hero have a human moment as his trauma splattered all over that room. To see it crushed a romantic idea that if we achieve enough, we're exempt from our shadow. And then seeing conflict of that nature displayed between two Black men on a white stage was disturbing, as we were watching a Black man insult a Black woman, right? As was equal to watching a Black man insult a Black woman on a white stage once again. Right. So it's really frustrating for me to hear the commentary, and I literally just fast forward. Hold on. Well, it's been a lot going on in my life this week. The last 2 weeks have been just a lot. Anyway, so I really am I'm thoroughly annoyed with how things are covered. Um, and I think that this book, like I can't praise this book anymore. Another thing that I thought was really bad at how people covered it was this Tupac thing. Tupac. When she says that this is chapter 10. Okay. When she claims that Tupac proposed to her, she is literally reading a letter from Tupac. And the letter from Tupac says, "Now, as I have slipped from grace and the world has turned against me, a few claim to have love for me, but once again, you show me your love. After deep reflection and spiritual awakening, I have come to realize the friend, lover, and soulmate was there all the time. I have not seen or felt from anywhere or anyone the intensity and loyalty that you have shown me." These were two friends. I have friends. My best friend is a guy. One of my best friends is a guy. I've known him for over 20 years now. When we hang up, before we hang up, we say, "I love you." Right? We've never done anything romantic. And he is, just as my husband's a priority, he is a priority in my life, right? And the concept that men and women can't have close friendships and share love for each other and not be there for each other without it being sexual is mind-boggling to me. And I will admit that even for my partner, there have been moments where he felt a way about him. There's different categories of love in a relationship. And so I get Will has talked about it, but y'all are blowing all of this into proportion to a way that it is unbelievable. Then you have people making videos saying he didn't propose to her. Like, she didn't have the letter that he wrote to her. And it's like, well, that's a lie. Okay. I have the Jasmine Guy book that she wrote with Afina Shakur. I mean, I can bring out the book. Let me see. Afina Shakur. Where's my Afina Shakur book? It's my autograph. It's an autograph book that I have. Here we go. Hold that thought. Hold on. Okay. Look, I am a researcher and a journalist. I think all my pages are turning brown. Jada Pinkett's in the book. Let's see. Page. Let's see. Let's see. The same, okay. She accounts the very same events that's in Jada's book. Talking about they were in the courtroom with him. and how he's in court, he stays with her. Jada's telling the same story about the sexual assault case, right? And then we have how they were friends, and they look at this. Two women headed the clan that hovered over him, and I later learned that his family was indeed a clan. This is her and him together. And then I mean, I'm really annoyed at, because people really are going out of their way to discredit this woman. Yes, he had a fiance, but he wasn't trying. His fiance's the love he had for his fiance was romantic. The love he had for Jada was a friendship. And people don't want to hear the rest of the conversation. They prefer the sound bites. And that's all it is. The sound bites are better. Okay, so there's my rant. Pinkett. There's my rant. Let me move on from my rant. And let me see. Let me see. Um, yeah, okay. I'm going to, yeah, I'm gonna put that to the side real quick. Anyway, I see, I actually have an autograph from Afina Shakur and Jasmine Guy. Anyway, I thought this book was beautifully written. The language was beautiful, and very eloquent. It is relatable. I thought the first chapter when she's reading about her grandmother, I really kept putting that in my head because I was like, I want to talk to you about it. I was overwhelmed with reading it, and I was in tears thinking about it because I was thinking about how I spent this time with my grandmother. We, uh, the cleaning aspect, it was us every Saturday we cleaned up the house. Um, and you went around the window panes, and my grandmother would kill me if she knew how I was not keeping up that same level at my own house. I mean, she was just, the whole making mud pies, the whole having, and my mother having this whole regime of what I was to read. My grandmother would get on me because my grandmother wanted me to read with expression. My mom and I was die hard, like, I'm not going to read with expression. I'm going to read monotone. She would get so angry with me, and I was just like so doing it just to spite her. And and I was really touched when she was trying to give her family, her grandparents' story, her grandmother's story, and how her grandmother became this sex educator, And grandparents, um, grandparents were born in the 1910s. Hers were born around the same time, a little older. No, I think it's about in the 1920s. And her grandparent, having children at a very young age, 13, having it up for adoption. And no, she didn't have hers for adoption, but she had a 13-year-old and she was 13, 14. And you have these questions of this pathology of being young mothers. Clearly my mother was definitely not. She was much more career focused for sure. But her mother, I don't think my grandmother felt she had choices, but mom. And you think about her first, we don't talk about first sexual experiences and how that scars people, right? And they have so much story to tell, but it hurts, and they grew up in a different time period. And so people keep secrets. And you just think about how women continuously pass down this necessity to be so hard because, at least Black women, because of these sexual experiences that they had. And it's, don't talk about, sex this way, and don't, talk about who may have, how did you become pregnant at 14? My grandmother was pregnant at 16. How did that happen? Why did this happen? That conversation. She got married before she turned 18, and she had kids every other year for 10 years straight. That's a lot. That's a lot on the body. She lost 2 not stillborn, but cradle death. And up until the last year of her life, she still mourned her 2 babies that wasn't even here a year. And you never had this conversation about, tell me your story. She wasn't raised by her parents. And I just think, looking at, when Jada talks about that, I think it's such a powerful concept. When she talks about her at the end, that's how the first chapter starts, right? And the first chapter ends with you to do this self-reflecting moment where she's asking, if you find some quiet time today, take an opportunity to write 3 beautiful memories from your childhood or simply from your past that help you to nourish the beautiful you that you are. By the way, you are a golden soul, right? And I just, it's the kids back. It's so good, right? And then you have, these positive affirmations, these moments that you have to talk about yourself. And then, like in chapter 2, she ends it with saying, can you find the moment when you began to reject the precious child within yourself? And I've spoken about this before, where I don't feel that through therapy, I was able to come to grips with the fact that I don't feel that I was not raised as a child. Like, when did, at a very young age, yes, playing was still okay, but there was no sense of no responsibility. Like, it felt as if you had a responsibility. Like, even though it was described, your responsibility is school, absolutely. But it felt deeper than just being a responsibility of school. It felt like it was weighted. And you had other things that you had to manage your finances. You had to manage all of these things. So it took away this gilded eye of 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 childhood. And so the notion where she goes and says, you can take that further and write a list of the parts of yourself you might want to reclaim that you didn't feel safe enough to embrace as a child. Give yourself the freedom to decide how you would like to express those parts of yourself on your journey to reclaim them. This is it's such a beautifully written book. And it is so difficult to see why people are rejecting it. But it's not for everybody either. I'm going to point that out. Like, not everybody is going to be able to really gather the message that is coming through in this book. Next time, I'm sorry, I'm going to do a video at midnight. But I also want to point out too that there are things that I disagreed with, like her parenting. I struggled with it, but I did thought it was interesting where she observes her husband being a dad to her daughter and feeling really happy that she was able to provide this for her children, but on the same note, also not necessarily jealous, but envious that that her daughter was able to have a treasured relationship with her dad that she could never have with hers. And even when her dad comes back into her life and he's like, yeah, I want to have a relationship with you as a dad. And she's like, I have 2 kids. I am married. I have a career. I don't need you as a dad now, right? And it made me think. I wrote a letter to my dad when I was 24. And I wrote a letter to explain to him that I'm good. Just in case if you ever thought about me. And it was rejected. It wasn't sorry, this is the wrong address. He don't live here no more. It was just rejected. And I was like, wow. And in the back of my head, I still have this fantasy that one day he's going to show up, right? And show up in a way that would be um helpful for me, either financially, either, just to say, anything. And I don't expect it, and he's probably dead, but it feels like that is something that is going to be in the back of my head forever. It also angers me that I have that thought. I don't know. As a whole, the book gives you a lot of introspection. And I think that the book is really not something for every person to read. And I respect the fact that she has a space for everyone to um, go back and online and have all these online resources to be able to go and talk to folks for therapy and all the healers and all the things that she's evolved over time. Um, it's to me, I think it's also frustrating that she talks about her that she has to face these rumors about her and Will being gay, and she continues to keep saying it. I did not get to this part where she says she had experiences with women. That's not in the book. I'm not saying that she hasn't had it. And it's clear that I also find too, I get why she loves why her and Will are together. Will is a savior, and she has I think the title of one of her chapters, chapter 11, The Savior Prince. And when people criticize her for talking about a memoir, talking about Will, it's like, but she spent over half her life now with one man. Of course, she's going to write about the person she spent half her life with. Why wouldn't she? It's a memoir. And I think that, and in his book, you see that he is a savior figure, but he also is looking at, this is the problem. How can I tackle it? When it comes to feelings and dealing with things, he talks about how he masks a lot of this with laughter to move on. She doesn't like that. She wants to confront. And this is the last part, and I know I've gone too long. A marriage dies from a lot of little cuts. And one thing that I keep hearing a lot of people talking about is why don't he divorce? Why don't she divorce? And I've concluded that one, they love each other, and that's what they say, and I believe that. But I also concluded too that it's the little things, right? It's these small things that you don't expect that would be the sum of the larger things. So these little bitty cuts of, and when they say, what's the reason for you guys separating or whatever, he is more vivid when it comes to his infidelity. She's not about his infidelity. She focuses on her situation, her entanglement, right? But she doesn't focus on what he's done. And because essentially she's making a decision that this is his story to tell if he wants to address it. And he does address it in his book. I feel that people want a justification in her cheating because it's like, how dare you cheat? It would be make this palatable if she talked about his cheating. And she references it in a way that makes she's like, it's unrealistic for me to think that he's not going to be faithful. That's unrealistic for me to believe that he's going to be faithful considering fill in the blank, right? So my argument to this is that infidelity, and I know that people are more prone to be like, he cheats, I'm leaving. Okay. Infidelity is one little thing, right? It's a very small thing. It's a betrayal. It's the lie. I get it. And it's hard to overcome. But the thing that really kills a marriage, and literally that seems like her separation, it's the 1,000 little cuts. It's the we're not talking we're not checking in, we're talking at each other. I expected you, when I need you, you don't always show up in the way that I need you to show up. And she gives examples, and I get it. Like, I get the and essentially this is why him and his ex-wife broke up, where it's a small issue as to the catalyst for their divorce, but it also shows how they view things so differently and how you handle your relationships and friendships, that's difficult for us to ever kind of, that's because I think I've mentioned it before. She didn't, she, he gave her the money to give, or she had the money in the house and she was supposed to give it to the person who cut his hair. He comes, cuts his hair, he runs off to get to the, because he's doing something in transit. And when he asked the guy, hey, I need for you to show up, drive here. It's like 2.5 hours, get here, do my hair, whatever. I was like, yeah, I don't want to. Like, well, what's wrong? What's wrong? All this time, he thought that his wife paid him correctly. She never mentioned that he shorted him. Never said that the next day, like when she got more money, that she was going to give it back to him. And so he never, all this time, it was like a few weeks, he never knew. And so he goes, and he's like, well, why would you do that to him? I told him this is what it was, and then you didn't fulfill that promise. She didn't think it was that big of a deal. She's like, I have this new baby in here. I wasn't going to be here by myself with no money. He's like, no money. Like, how is that not, how you don't have money? Like, you have a credit card, like you have money. Like, I don't leave you places with no money. But it's fast. It was a divergent in points. Here's the thing. Jada would have never done that. Jada would have been like, you told him to give him $300. There would have been no question. I'm giving you $300. Even if I have not 1 cent left in this house. If you made a promise to give him $300, I'm going to give you $300 because I have your back to fulfill the commitment. And that to me that's why they're perfect for each other. They have a lot of similarities on how they handle each other. However, it's the 1,000 little cuts of they have different love languages. He has love language in gifts and over the top. And their separation forced him to, in his evolution and learning of more of himself. And I think part of it is the book. Part of him, he's turning 50. Part of it is exploring. Part of it is he's reached his goal. Part of it is that his career is evolving and changing. That he's had to readjust. Part of it is having a daughter. He had to readjust what love meant and how to express it with your partner. She had to come to grips with the concept that she's worthy of receiving the love he gives. And that was her journey. And I think that's so relatable with a lot of us. When I tell you, I want to do a book club on the book. It is that good. Sorry that this video was so long. Sorry I cried a bit. I hope you finish to the end. If you don't, I get it. I apologize for my loud kids who just won't let me be great. And have a great rest of your day.